Welcome to Tanked Up, decade-ending spectacular. I'm joined by Ben Nother.
Hello.
He doesn't know how to react when he's not hosting. He's waving and then saying hello and
Hello.
And Lucy Yearwood.
Hi.
Yeah, see, the immediate hi. Lucy knows how to. This is our end of 2019 decade spectacular, where we're going to go over our amorphous blob of games we liked in the past 10 years. But first, some beers. Ben, seeing as you've cracked a beer, what is your first beer?
My first beer is from Polly's. It is Imperial Battenberg Stout called Like a Ghost.
I like the purple teardrop sort of can art.
It is an Imperial Stout. It's featuring almonds, apricot jam, and vanilla. The yeast is London Ale 3 and USO 5. It's 10%. That's all it gives.
Stronger.
Yes, we've jumped up a little bit. Obviously, continuing on beers from our
inside
our
baseball.
Episode. Well, slightly. We didn't talk about our favourite beers on the last episode on our game of the year. That's going to come at the end of this one as we're continuing drinking, recording on the same night. So it's all going to come at the end.
So we're selling you DLC.
Exactly that, Lucy. Exactly.
Except that these podcasts are free.
Actually, as I am the host, I have to be the one to reveal to our listeners that from this moment forward, the best beer of the night will be available as a microtransaction.
I'll give you my PayPal.
Yeah, we take PayPal, Venmo, Patreon, Deliveroo, all of the things.
No, I just want cash in an envelope. Sorry, untraceable.
Lucy, what are you pouring? I saw you crack the beer already.
Yeah, I'm drinking a beer from Brewery Keys.
Nice.
And it's in collaboration with North Brewing Co. It's called Velvet Purple, and it's a honey and pistachio imperial stout. And it's 10%, just like Ben's. And what caught my eye with this one is that it's got Sriracha Ace hops in it.
Ooh.
Don't you
Your
usually
favorite?
see those? Not quite.
It's one of yours, isn't it?
I'd say it's one I'm very interested by, but
yeah, I guess
it works
maybe
well.
favorite is probably too strong, but it's a thing that when you see, given that it's rare, that you tend to pick.
Intrigued by it, yeah.
Just like JRPGs. It is the hop JRPG analog for Lucy, right?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, I'm derailing again.
Fine.
Aadil, what are you drinking?
Thank you, Ben. I am drinking the Unity Brewing Company's Nocturne Oatmeal Porter. It is, hold on. Nocturne is our modern take on the classic porter. Dark, rich, smooth, and all about the malt, with a complex bill of British and German malts, including a hefty dose of flaked oat. It is a mild 5%. I think I'm the only person stepping down in terms of alcohol ABV. But yeah, I saw this. I was like, you know what? I know we're going to have a handful of beers. I kind of wouldn't mind stouty, portery notions at the end. So I picked one that sort of struck my fancy. It's usually you see oatmeal stouts. You actually rarely see oatmeal porters, and that's kind of why I picked this one. I was like, okay, so let me see what the difference of those is. And while I pour this splendid looking and smelling beer, Ben, have you had a chance to taste your beer?
I have. It calls itself a Battenberg stout, Imperial Battenberg stout, and I think that's because of the it features that apricot jam, features vanilla, features almonds. It's very reminiscent of Coke.
Like Ain or cola?
Cola. It dials those flavours up. You're definitely getting roasted notes in with it as well. You're getting that stout profile. But actually, maybe the sweetness that I think is a combination of maybe the vanilla and the apricot jam. It's really close to sort of aspartame or something like that you get in Coke. or a
Yeah.
cola. And it also, obviously, it very much looks like that as well. It's got this very light level of carbonation to it. It's not big, but I think it's just because you're hit with this sweetness straight away that it makes me think of more like a soft drink than a beer. It's only then that the almond kind of kicks in, that the coffee notes kind of kick in towards the back end. They're like, oh, actually, yes, this is a stout. It's very thin as well in body, so it adds towards that kind of that thought process in my head that actually this is a soft drink. Then, oh no, yes, it is a stout. It definitely, but it's very, very easy to drink. Dangerously so. I'm even,
My favourite kind of beer.
Unprecedented facts. I've changed glass as well to launch into the stouts. So, it's got a lovely nose to it as well.
Yeah.
Slightly smoked on the nose. It's roasted, but a little bit more, a little bit smoky. I'm going to enjoy this. Lucy.
Mine looks almost identical to yours.
Yeah.
I mean, from
Almost
afar,
less
you'd
head.
think, oh, the zero head.
I was saying, it could pass
dissipated in a
yeah.
sec. Yeah, it looks like
Coffee
a
almost.
or a port or a wine or something like that. It's
Yeah, fair enough.
from a little bit of distance away, but yeah, the head just disappeared completely. Yeah, jet black in appearance. Aroma, it smells quite sweet, I think that's a lot from the honey, and just like yours, Ben, mine's got a nut in it. It's pistachio though.
Yeah.
But you're getting those like roasted nuts, like kind of aroma, a bit smoky as well. It's 10% beer.
Yeah.
Bit hesitant to drink this because it smells strong. You can smell the alcohol on it.
Like, it's the point where nothing else is coming off the nose, or just that you can smell its booze.
You can smell it's boozy, but
was vapor.
saying that,
Like alcohol
Yeah.
vapor.
just a little bit, yeah. I think that's a combination with like the smokiness as well. Just sipping it, I mean, it looks quite thin, like it could be quite thin, but tasting it starts off thin, but then it gets a little body as you drink more of it, and it does have that like comforting, slightly viscous taste and mouthfeel that I want in a stout.
Yeah.
The licorice smell really, that was probably what made me more hesitant right booze, because I'm not a massive fan of very sweet licoricey beers, but this has more sweetness from the honey.
Yep.
It's balanced well with the bitterness of like the nuts in it and the smoke. And just saying that now, I can taste the alcohol, like slight burn on my chest after a few moments. But it's a nice, comforting one. It's not overt. It's not over the top. It's booziness. It creeps on you.
Yeah.
It's slow building. Yeah, this is really nice.
Nice, good. We've got a frozen Aadil. I don't know where he's gone. Whether his internet has just been cut from his building, didn't pay their bill. It's just gone. But we need to go to him next for his beer.
Oh, he said he's lost us, guys.
We
lost you.
Boo, Aadil, boo.
Shall we wait for Aadil? Or shall we jump in, considering his internet died?
Ooh, let's give him 30 seconds.
So,
I can cut this together. No, let's just chat. Let's just chat.
yeah,
Let's
any further thoughts on the beer?
Further thoughts on the beer?
I mean, this is the kind of weather you want these beers.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a good start.
I've chilled both of these slightly, not as much as I chilled the other two.
Mine's been sitting out since our first podcast, so it's just at that right temperature.
Yeah, I I think I put the first two in the fridge as soon as I got home, and then I put these two in the fridge maybe an hour before we started recording. So they've only been in for maybe 3 hours in the fridge, roughly. Whereas my first beers were in for, a good sort of 6-7 hours, something like that. And that chilled nature to it.
Hey, he's back.
That chilled nature to it kind of, I think, adds to that sort of soft drink element to it. I think if this was a little bit warmer, I wouldn't get that quite as much. But that combination of chilled, sweetness just makes it, just is very reminiscent of Coke.
Yeah.
Cola, not Coke.
Yeah.
Cola.
Yeah, mine's got like a slight fruitiness. I don't know if that's a sweetness I'm conflating with the honey, but it tastes like it's got a bit of fruitiness to it as well.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just Sriracha Ace hops
Yeah.
playing a part, because you see those in. Well, I've had it in. I don't think I've ever had Sriracha Ace in a stout.
I've not, definitely not.
Yeah, I mean that's why I was super
works.
curious about this one.
Yeah, it's a bit of fruitiness. It's a bit of like light tang or something like that.
Yeah, you're saying it's sort of like licorice in there as well. Like maybe it's a little bit woody, a little bit maybe leathery, bit of tannins, sort of.
I'd say a bit of tannins, like. Yeah, but yeah, it's really nice. It's really good.
Nice, good. Aadil, how's your beer? Have you had a sip yet?
It is on the nose, nice and malty, a little chocolatey, nice and rich. I'm gonna say it's a touch of dried fruit.
It's a porter, isn't it? I know, Lucy, you and I have got stouts. How are you on a porter?
Oh, yeah. So you get that chocolatiness. You get you can taste that it's just 5% in the sense of I think we're just all three of us are on board with like our stouts and porters being boozy. That sweetness tends to go really well with the malts involved and with the sort of chocolatey, toffee flavors being forward in stouts and porters. And this, they're forward, but because their alcohol content is a bit low, you can kind of taste it's a little apart, like to the point where I think this is 6%, 5%. I think 6 or 7 would have like helped combine these tastes together because there's a bit of a gap going on. So I have a bit of a dryness in between the like toffee dried fruit flavors and the maltiness. Like they're just a little more separate than I'd like, and I think normally I don't notice that when I have a more boozy porter, because I think what stitches it together is that sweetness that comes from the alcohol. It's really good. I like the oatiness of the malts, the oatmealiness of the malts. Again, I'm getting mostly the malt forward and a little bit of the sort of dried version of the fruits being involved. So like there's a touch of grapiness, but it's more like raisins, but not as sweet.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a fine porter. I actually really like the slight difference between an oatmeal stout and an oatmeal porter. I'm really enjoying this because the oatmeal's going in a different direction.
Yeah.
It's less. Yeah, I guess the main thing is usually an oatmeal stout, it's like more viscous, more filling, more rounded, and this is like you're getting the oatiness, but from the like difference in porters and stouts, you tend to have more segmented tastes, less super malt forward in a porter, and that means the oats going less far, but is still distinct.
Yeah.
So you get this notion of, oh yeah, this is oaty, but it's not like filling up the glass oatmeal, sort of like very viscous, very
Super
like malt
thick.
forward.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Still has that lightness to it.
Yeah, so I think that you get the nice sort of oaty, biscuity hits of the malts, but without necessarily the like thickness and viscosity that usually comes with an oatmeal stout.
Nice, good.
Yeah, it's very
Awesome.
interesting. I'm glad I tried an oatmeal porter.
Yeah.
Nice. No, I'm not hosting. Fuck, I shut the fuck up.
Yeah. All right. So, the three of us have thought about the different approaches to thinking about our games of the year decade, the games of the year decade. I'm definitely fucking that up. I almost had it, and then Ben even was like, "Yep, that's what you meant." It's like, no, I definitely didn't say what I meant. Thanks, Ben. I appreciate the vote of confidence. I definitely had an idiosyncratic take. Sounds like, Lucy, you had a bundle of games, and Ben, you had roughly a top 10.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say let's start with Lucy's bundle. Maybe I'll go in afterwards with my, because mine are very much category based, and maybe we'll tag into Ben's throughout that, and if not, we'll finish off with the top 10.
I think I can contribute to your categories, because I did have some listen. I was like, oh, well, these are best narratives I enjoyed, and I can just
cool. So do you want me to just start with mine, or do you want to start with your amorphous one?
I'll list my
and then you'll fill in. Cool.
Yeah, because
we're really good at planning things. Shut up. We know we're great. That's why you listen to us.
I'm just gonna list my games of the year.
Decade.
From 20
great.
to 20.
Yeah.
That's
right. So Lucy, your approach was you definitely have already done games of the year, and so you're just going to tell us what they were, right?
Yeah. Although I don't remember from. I'm just going to go from 2010. I don't know what it is in 2010. I'm just going to say Call of Duty Black Ops, because that is the best multiplayer shooter to come out in the last decade.
Did it come out in the last decade?
It did.
It came out in 2010.
I looked it up.
I don't know. 2011, I have no idea what came out. I'll just assume Limbo came out, and then we can, couple that with Inside.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, Uncharted 2
came out in July 2010.
Arkham Asylum, but that was all 2009. Huh? What came out?
Limbo came out in July 2010.
Well, there you go. But we've pushed it up to 2011. We've rewrote history. 2012, I have no idea what came out, so I'll just say Gone Home. 2013, obviously The Last of Us. 24, which
Gone Home.
If we're ranking of all time. When did Gone Home come out? 2013?
August 2013, yeah.
Well, we're bumping it back down to 2012.
So we're starting with the amorphous blob.
Yeah, amorphous blob. Yeah. There you go. Where was I? Last of Us is my favourite game of all time. I've spoken about that. I'm sure we'll speak about that later anyway. 2013, Last of Us. 2014. That dud year, but that would have been like South Park, the Stick of Truth.
Yes.
We'll shove Sunset Overdrive in there because that's great as well. 2015 would have been Rise of the Tomb Raider. Can shove Ori and the Blind Forest in there if we want to as well. 2016 Hitman.
Yep.
Probably. The best puzzle game of the decade. 2017 was Horizon Zero Dawn, one of the only RPGs other than South Park.
Yeah,
the Stick of Truth
and open world, and both made you stick the landing and finish the fucking game. That's not a testament. Yeah, nothing else.
Got Robot Dinosaurs, winning formula. 2018, we'll give it to Celeste / Hollow Knight.
Yeah.
And 2019, if you listen to our previous episode.
Literally what we recorded minutes ago. Yeah.
My top game of 2019 is Resident Evil 2. So there's a bunch of games.
Cool.
I've got a few more, but we'll get into your categories first, because I will just pitch in.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because they weren't my top game, but I believe they're very important in terms of.
So I have 10 categories I thought were interesting. But Ben, was your list categorized or just ranked?
Mine's more ranked, but I do have a genre as one of my entries.
Cool.
Yes.
let's start with that, and then I will just start throwing categories out, and we can talk about our favorite things, and then we can finish with your rant.
Is it walking simulators or strategy
Well, it
games?
is.
Okay, then fuck off, because that is my number 9 category, so we'll just go...
So it's my number 10, but it's kind of like news games. It's not
That's
just
literally what I
walking
call
simulators.
my...
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, it's
Really?
not just walking simulators. It's more things like Firewatch. It's things that you are interacting with a little bit more. Firewatch, Gone Home,
Can I
Stanley
just pause you
Parable.
on there? So, if you aren't familiar with Ben and I's specific terminology, if you're
Yeah,
a
I'm
newer to tanked up person,
I
you haven't
am.
paying attention.
I don't know what news game is.
So it turns
I thought you
out,
meant the Westport Independent.
so it turns out two-ish,
Papers,
2.5,
please.
3 years ago, we realized that the two ways of describing this same category game were either narrative exploration or walking simulator, and that spells news, which is northeast, west, south, which is
that
the
makes
way of
sense now.
exploring a map in all its ways. So Ben and I have consistently said news game, and what we mean is it's either a walking simulator or narrative exploration, because they kind of mean the same thing. And so
Gotcha.
for me, I have 2 news games I wanted to highlight. Gone Home, because I think it was at the crest of walking simulators, but it was the narrative exploration really mattered, and it was done so well.
Which
And
Lucy,
then
you
the
mentioned as well, right?
Fantastic game.
And the inverse of that for me was Journey, which is I think the most gamey version of this, but kind of is a walking simulator,
So
and it was fantastic. And it was released in the 2010s.
2012,
And so-
I believe, yeah.
Yeah, so for me, my news category is Gone Home, the narrative side, Journey, the walking side. To me, it's a genre that was born in the 2010s, has some super interesting things going on. A lot of it has to do with leaning on the narrative, but also the walking simulator part has really been developed. If Stranding is a fucking thing, it's because... It's because of the walking simulator online notion of Journey, which ultimately I think is a walking simulator. It's a co-op walking simulator.
Well,
and
I'd call
if
it an
Stranding
adventure game, but yeah.
Yeah,
Don't worry, I'm not gonna.
yeah. But so this is
max
why I wanted to highlight both of those for this category, was because one was very much about the tightness of the narrative exposition in different ways when you're just wandering around by yourself, and the other was the gameplay mattered that you were wandering.
So what are the rest of your categories, and then we can, with as with Lucy's list.
Yeah,
we
list
can
the
delve back
categories
into it.
first, and then
List the
I can
categories.
say, I
Sure.
will speak about this then.
So my number 10 category was CCGs, because I figured no one else gave a collectible card games.
Okay, number 9 was the news.
So I wanted to highlight that my favorite video game CCG was Dual List, because it was like an SRPG and a card game at the same time, and it made the computer matter. But probably the most impactful card game was Magic: The Gathering Arena, because it's just trying to mimic the best part of card games.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, list them off.
Yeah, so I got news. So CCG news, open world.
Oh.
Anyone want to talk about open world games?
No, keep going.
Keep going.
Open
and,
world, narrative/brutal storytelling,
Ooh.
Okay.
couch co-op, solo shooter, online shooter, SRPG, small games, and innovation.
What the fuck are small games?
I think it's like puzzle games, mobile games, small games.
Can I rewind all the way back to the news games?
Yeah.
And then, how do you fancy this if I put the likes of Night in the Woods in there? Life is Strange.
Life is Strange. I think
Life
is more.
is
So
Strange.
Night in the Woods, I think,
interesting.
it's borderline, but I think Life is Strange is too much character doing a thing to be a news game.
All right,
I
but
think it's more
that
like an
same-
action adventure game.
Yeah.
The point is you're plodding
Just
along,
like
but like
Journey.
no,
But, like-
come on, you do fuck all except wander.
Okay, so
and
it's
Journey,
okay.
really.
Sing,
So
mate,
I
sing.
wanna
Yeah.
I wanna add a
Blurred
category
lines.
then. I wanna add
Robin Thicke was right, apparently. Speaking of the 2010s, hey, but Oh god, those sighs and that lean back. You're missing out if you're not watching the YouTube. No one here likes me, including you. I get it. It's fine.
Moving swiftly on.
Sorry, I'm just gonna mute this.
I'm just gonna add the. It's not really. I'm defining this to a decade because we all know what happened to Telltale by the end of the decade, and then somehow coming back again. But anyway, regardless of that, it's like I'm just talking about the games, not as such as the categories that came to fruition. Like
for sure, yeah.
Obviously, great mention, and like obviously, yes, we want to highlight. Oh yeah, Walking Simulators, news games came to the forefront this generation, but still,
definitely, yeah.
Stuff like Telltale were doing stuff before the 2010s, but like The Walking Dead and Tales from the Borderlands, two favorite Telltale games, and then that introduced likes of like Life is Strange, and I will just put like Her Story, Night in the Woods in there.
Yeah.
Oh, Her Story is so close to being on my list.
Yeah, so Her Story was also really close for me. So I think news and adventure captures those, right?
Yeah.
The point is that the dynamic gameplay is the backseat, I guess, is the best way to describe this category.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to like pigeonhole some of these because obviously the rest of mine will come into like one of your categories of deal, but Until Dawn, I don't know where to put that.
Yeah. This was one of those things that I cut out because I had too many things on my list, but I really wanted to mention, so I'm glad you did. I think innovatively, it's a really interesting thing that was never quite as clearly done.
It is the
video game. Yeah, it's a video game equivalent Until Dawn to a choose your own adventure with multiple people, and you can't do that with a book, and you can do it with a video game, and they fucking figured it out.
And we saw that with David Cage's games attempted to do that, but I think Until Dawn's better than any game that
again, in the past 10 years, if you wanted to pick something that did that right, it's going to be Until Dawn. So I'm glad you picked that.
Ain't bloody Detroit. Speaking of, that's the only game that's actually made me physically angry.
Yeah, that's fair. We definitely didn't budget time for games we fucking hated.
No, that's true. We didn't. Maybe that's our opening.
We will pepper those in during the next hour and a bit while we finish this list. So I assumed you had no CCGs. Did we want to say anything about news games?
I mean, so it features as my
these
number 10.
Categories
like
aren't in any
games.
specific order.
Yeah, so news games features as my number 10, and I didn't kind of want to differentiate between something like Firewatch and Gone Home and the Stanley Parable because they're short experiences that tell you a story, and a very specific story. It's leading you through an experience. It's leading you through a character's perception and how they live through an experience. It's telling you how they feel. You don't get to choose how they feel. It's telling you how they feel, but it tells you that story. It's like a novella.
Yeah.
It is open to interpretation in some ways, as any novel or novella is.
Yeah.
But it very much leads you through these things, and I love that this is kind of this genre that has opened up. That we've got this additional method of storytelling that is a little bit more interactive. You're doing a little bit more than just reading something.
Exactly.
Yes, you may only be walking around an environment and picking something up, which then gives you more exposition, or walking to a point, which then gives you more exposition. But you are slightly more invested.
But also, like, my version of the game will be very different from yours based on where I went, because I chose to go left and you chose to go right. I chose to continue down the street even though I got the pertinent piece of information to continue the story, and I kept going because I was like, well, what's some backstory? So our narrative explorations are different. Like, we literally get to explore the narrative differently, and that's what the interactivity gives something beyond a book, right? Like, if we read the same book, you could choose to skip 7 pages ahead, but you have no idea what the transitions are going to be, so you just have to read those 7 pages. And in these things, you can be like, cool, the next story beat needs this piece of information. I figured it out, and I can choose to just keep going forward instead of turning back. And that's what makes these really interesting and innovative to me, which is why I want to highlight them as a genre, was because, something changed because stories were being told very differently from 2010 onwards in virtue of this realization that gameplay you can have a streamlined version of Gone Home, or you can have the most in-depth version of Gone Home, and the story impacts you differently.
Yeah.
Right? Versus, like, going on all the side quests in Skyrim, you're still going to basically have the same storyline on the main run. Like, something else is going on narratively, and that's what was developed in this decade, and I wanted to highlight.
Yeah,
okay.
That's fair.
In the interest of timing, my next category is open world. And so, just to give you a sense of what I put in that category, I had GTA 5 as I'll throw it away, but ultimately I think it fails at open world. But the two things I wanted to...
It's my least favorite GTA, so even though I got a post about that, it didn't make my list.
So
even though it should.
But I have two things I wanted to bring up in open world. One is the really embracing the open world, which is Breath of the Wild. Just the point of that game is just fuck off, explore, don't worry about the game. The world is your oyster, and you want to slurp it up. And then the flip side, I had Sleeping Dogs, which was one of my favorite GTA clones. It wasn't. Yep, I looked it up.
Yeah.
I will look it up again.
No. If you say it is, it absolutely is. I think.
Why I thought it was important to bring up the contrast of these two. It came out in 2012, August. Was because it managed to give you a live, vibrant city, but a very coherent storyline with because the city wasn't too big, you had earmarks to know your pathing. And I think it's that sweet spot that we've lost with open world games, having their maps get bigger and bigger. Like that, you knew exactly what you could do, what you needed to do, but you could fuck off for a while and still find your way. And that's the sweet spot, right? You want these games to have their plots, for the plots to go fine, but you also want to be able to just do what you want whenever you want. And in this game, in between the gun combat and the martial arts combat and the training, etc., of both, it was just like I said, you explored Hong Kong, you could play this game in a short amount of time, or you could take all the time in the world. But if you did a bunch of side stuff, you didn't know what the next move in the main plot was. It is by far one of my favorite GTA clones. I liked that it had more dynamic combat than just crouch and shoot, even though it wasn't a cover shooter. Like you could do melee, etc.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you can finish this game real quick, but even if you finish it, you kind of want to come back to the world. And I thought this is one of the best instances of an open world game that still felt like a game and not just a sandbox. That's why I wanted to mention it versus Breath of the Wild, which is the exact inverse, which is like the plot doesn't matter until you choose to fight Ganon. The point is you're just fucking about in a world doing whatever you want. And these are diametrically the spectrums of open world, why I like open world games to be either. Yeah. So I wanted to highlight them. But I also didn't finish Horizon, and I knew you guys did, so I thought open world wise you might have something.
Open world, nah. I much prefer the RPG elements in Horizon Zero Dawn. The Lucy Award to the best RPG, which many will disagree with, is Horizon Zero Dawn. But the best open world exploration, the best world that I want to explore award goes to Breath of the Wild, because I've not felt that way. Where it's like the combat's crap, the story's crap.
I hate that my sword breaks, but I still want to fuck around in the world.
But uncovering up to a certain point, everything in this world is intriguing. Bask in this world. I haven't felt that way since a GTA or something.
Early GTA, right?
Yeah, GTA 5 is... I enjoyed that world, it was just... It didn't bring that, giddy, kiddie
in the interest
enjoyment from exploring it.
In the interest of us looking backward, I'm just curious, because I think we've all had our GTA moment. What is your favorite GTA?
San Andreas.
Ben?
It's not even a contest.
San Andreas, absolutely.
So I waffle between Vice City and San Andreas. I love the setting of Vice City, but I love the actual
City-
gameplay of San Andreas more.
Vice City is one of my
Grove
least favorites.
Street, bitches.
But like I've been saying since San Andreas came out, why is there not an MMO which is gang warfare as done
Absolutely.
in San Andreas?
Yes.
This should be a
Speaking of-
slam fucking dunk. I've said
There
this
is.
4
It's
years.
called
It's in GTA 5
APB.
online.
It's called APB. All,
Yeah, it's not the same.
ABP.
Yeah,
all,
yeah.
no, APB.
APB.
All points
APB.
bulletin.
All points
yes.
bulletin.
And
Yeah.
speaking
it's
of
not great.
open worlds, when you said Sleeping Dogs, I thought conversely, Saints Row 3. The best
my
Saints
problem
Row
is-
for me. I know
my
it's
best
not your
fit-
favourite.
I know, mine is 2, and that was before the cutoff, so I couldn't mention it.
When you said GTA clone, and
Yeah.
I was like, the best one for me is Saints Row 3. Right, what's your next category then?
The next category is narratives / specifically brutal storytelling, because for me,
The
the
brutal.
games I liked. So
Sake.
it is narratives, but for me, the 2 games that like immediately jumped out to me were because they managed to give their storytelling a realism that wasn't suspected. So my 2 brutal storytelling things were Papers, Please and Spec Ops: The Line.
Yes.
Very different, but both
Yeah.
clearly why you like these games is in there.
Yeah, I was looking at games that came out in like 2012. I saw Spec Ops
But, like,
or something like that.
Yeah, Ben,
Yeah.
you definitely played Spec Ops more
I
recently.
did. Yeah.
And it was the first time you played it through, right?
Yes, it was.
So,
yeah.
when the world started to happen in the requisite plotting way,
I think.
did you know? Like, did you have the heads up that this was gonna have the twist? Because when I played it,
No,
I had no
I
idea.
did not. I
No,
think
I
Spec
didn't
Ops, Spec
either.
Ops is definitely one of those games that has gone under a lot of people's radar.
Yeah.
So it wasn't spoilt for me in any kind of way because I didn't see that much chatter around it, and me playing it several years after its release as well. You know, the talk around it had died down, and at the time it released, I just completely missed it. So didn't know anything that had kind of happened. And it definitely had that impactful kind of turn to it, absolutely. But it's one that it builds the narrative slowly. So you're not kind of like, here's the story, here's the story, here's the story. You know, it's told through a little bit of exposition. It's told through the conversations that the characters have between themselves, between those action sequences. You know, it's like, it is this year, this is going on, this stuff is happening. It's, hey, we're on our way to do this.
Yeah.
Oh shit, suddenly stuff's happened. Oh, now we need to think about it in this way. Okay, now we need to react to it in this way. Oh, now I need to just do this because I've got no fucking idea what's going on. And you can feel the stress for that character, you know, for the main character, why they're making the decisions. And then the reveal about kind of like the consequence of what's happened. And it does hit you in that sort of way that the writing is so it's just I can't quite think of the word for it, but it just underlies everything that happens through that game.
It belies your expectations.
Yes, I mean, this is why I wanted to mention it in the narrative category, because it's kind of a middling cover shooter,
Yeah,
but what makes it an excellent game. Yeah.
Actually, because one of my, speaking of Spec Ops: The Line, one of my categories was best narrative in a mediocre, poor playing game, and in the top 3, the third goes to Mafia 3.
Ooh.
Yeah, no, I get you there.
That is an excellent narrative in a mediocre
middling
game.
game.
Second place goes to Wolfenstein 2. What is it? The New Colossus.
The New Colossus.
I love
yes.
that narrative. So many twists and plot plans, and it's just batshit crazy. And number 1 goes to Red Dead Redemption 2. So
I haven't played it yet.
poor gameplay to a certain extent.
I mean, this is why I wanted
Best
to bring up the narrative category, because I knew we all, actually, especially in the past couple of years, we've kind of gone our separate ways, but we all 3 of us clearly give a shit about narrative. which is why I wanted to say narrative / brutal storytelling, because it turns out that like
all
what
those
stuck
three
out
games
to
are
me-
brutal, to be honest.
But, like-
Wolf,
Yeah.
Mafia, and Red Dead.
yeah.
So it
But
works.
like I think all three of us played Papers, Please, and
Mhm.
that's a game that their narrative is implicit. Like the moves of the narrative are explicit, but you get a feel for the world in a way that is the worst.
Yeah.
And I have to commend them on their writing, because they aren't saying you should feel this way. They just expose you to the decisions you have to make, and then you feel that way. And that actually is really hard, especially when you're also wrapping it around gameplay loops. And like, again, I just think that's just such a solid game for understanding the world that you might not understand historically.
Yeah. That's fair.
Anyone else have specific narrative things? Like, you mentioned.
No,
I mean,
those were
obviously,
those were my
I've
best
not,
narratives.
I've not delved into my
Yeah.
list yet. And we're talking
We'll get
about
there.
some of the games that I have featured, but I have opened a bit.
Oh, cool. I am still finishing this.
That Polly's
Same.
absolutely
Just
flew
slam through.
back. It's yes.
Can I
I'm
say
not on
that
your
the
level,
next?
Ben.
Ooh,
Yeah,
can
can
I would just say what's going through not quite as quickly, and we can come back to beers, but I have opened from Odyssey the Devil's Pudding, which is an
a
Imperial
stout,
Stout. It's
right?
11%.
Okay.
You're
and it is a
daring
little
today,
bit
aren't you?
thicker, so it is going back slightly slower.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we'll come
In that case, Lucy, you kind of midway through your, or mostly done?
Why?
Yeah. Okay.
I did.
Ben, you tell us about your fucking 11% stouts.
Oh,
We're gonna
shit,
go
okay.
through a couple categories, then we'll cut back to Lucy and I on our next beer.
Right. My 11% Stout went everywhere.
Yeah.
Very, very fizzy. It blew up out of the glass, it blew up out of the can as I cracked it. A lot fizzier than any of the other beers I've had this evening. I've had to use an old net curtain to clean up the booze. But that's fine. No one needs
Your
fucking
new
net curtains these
house.
days.
Well, you've christened it now, so first beer stain.
Odyssey. What does it tell me? 11% hops, kettle, warrior. Hops biotransformation, not applicable. Hops post-fermentation, not applicable. It's got cacao, vanilla, and coffee. That's all I get. I mean, it does have all of those things.
So can I ask what the main flavor there is? Is it more coffee forward?
It's more coffee. Absolutely more coffee, which I'm completely down with.
Yeah.
This is a very, very good beer to finish my night out on after several other beers which are doing lots of different things.
I mean, I assumed you were going to have 3 more.
It's a really, really good sort of evening beer. It's giving me those coffee notes. Yes, it's slightly sweetened by the vanilla. I'm getting a little bit of chocolate in there as well. Super roasted going through, and that sweetness, that vanilla, that comes right at the fore. So on the smell, it's all coffee. Absolutely dominated by coffee. But when you sup, that vanilla just breaks it. So the coffee is there, and that is the dominating thing. But that vanilla just breaks that coffee enough, just heightens the sweetness very slightly, that it's not too bitter.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly, the chocolate kind of kicks in, and it's a dark chocolate, and you're thinking, oh, actually, that bitterness is there. The sweetness is gone, and it allows that bitterness, that coffee, that chocolate, just to linger, just to sit there. And then I'm going, I really need some more of this beer. I must drink some more of this beer.
Gotcha. Can I ask one just icing on your descriptive cake? It's 11%. It sounds like it's alcohol forward. Is the sweetness well embedded, or is it kind of like the alcohol sweet? Is the alcohol sweetness kind of hidden by these layers you've been describing, or is it just it doesn't matter because these layers are distracting?
I think it doesn't matter
how embedded it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got the
think it doesn't
vibe that
matter.
maybe it was it has this alcohol sweetness, but so much is going on you don't notice, versus the sweetness is embedded in these moves.
And I think they've covered it enough with the vanilla for you to not pick out the alcohol from it. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks, Ben. Before we move on to Luce and I slowly finishing our beers, the next category I have is couch co-op. And for me, I wanted to highlight both Towerfall Ascension and Duck Game, but also the Jackbox Party series, which I know most people probably haven't had the chance to play, but I think they are the quintessential non-gamer couch co-op game. And
that's fair.
3 or 4 of them, I think 4, 5, and 6 at least, if probably not 3 as well, were all in the last decade. I don't remember when the first Jackbox game came out. The early ones weren't great. Everyone has their smartphone, and you have a laptop, and the laptop is like directing the game, and like, are you drawing at the same time, writing responses, are you picking responses? Everyone just needs a smart device, and they can play, and that's kind of the easiest way to get couch co-op without gamers. Like, you can just be like, and I've done this with my housemates, to the point where they've been like, can we do that again some nights? And it was a night where we played Jackbox 2, 3, and 4, just a couple games from each, and they were like, that was amazing, let's do this again. I play board games, this was fun. And it's not video games at their pristine, but it is the ultimate in couch co-op because people want... and then obviously Duck Game and Towerfall Ascension are these like twitchy, very fun, stupid... Skill can help you a certain point, but not otherwise. So for me, this is the balance of like, if you care about games, what would you want to play on the same screen as a friend? If you don't care about games, blah. But I also know there are couch co-op games that involve more skill, and so I will open it up to. Do you guys have a better notion of couch co-op, including Box Boy and Box Girl, which we talked about?
No, I was going to completely nope out of this, but when you said Jackbox, I was like, yeah, they're so accessible. I've had more fun playing Jackbox than any, like, even though I like Duck Game and Towerfall's very good at what it does. When I'm in a... Games are more personal to me. I don't want to play with anybody. It's antisocial. It's more of a me experience. I want to do it with my time, but in terms of a couch co-op game, yes, Jackbox. I'll always pick that up, you know? It just works so well. So accessible, so... Overcooked as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, thank you. That's what I was looking for. Like, Overcooked is clearly an example of a Switch-oriented... Also on PC, but I think very Switch-oriented couch co-op.
And I like Lovers in a Dangerous Space Time.
Yeah.
I am bad at that game.
Everybody is.
When I've played it with others, I've been like, no, I get what this should be. It should be a game. I'm like, yeah, everyone should play it. It's super fun. It's super accessible. I'm garbage at this. I don't like playing it. I will not recommend it to someone.
It is like everything just goes wrong, but it's still so fun, just like Overcooked, you know. Yeah.
Ben, Ben?
Couch co-op is a bit of an odd one.
Over the past 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's the experience that I've enjoyed in couch co-op has been things like over the past 10 years is a difficult one because I don't think I have had that many couch co-op experiences. You know, the previous decade with things like Guitar Hero, stuff like that, very big in that sort of sense. I think this decade I've much more.
But like your adventure games, you know, like you can say like.
I mean, we definitely
or something like that.
I mean, yeah, but I didn't play that couch co-op. I played that by myself. So
or something to that.
Well, I mean, we played nipple clamps together.
Yeah.
Only very briefly.
Yeah, you know, I guess my point is, so why I wanted to bring it up was because for a while there, you were coming over every so often, and we recorded a bit that never actually hit our YouTube channel for various reasons. But we were playing couch co-op games because we fucking love them. And it actually, one of the reasons why that never became a series was because it was actually quite hard to come up with them. Like, we did Duck Game, we did Terrafall, but those were like sitting on the back burners. They had been there for a while. People knew they were a thing, and then once we ran out of this
Bushido
backlog,
Black and White as well.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But like, why I wanted to highlight it was because it's a thing that at the beginning of this decade was big, and by the end of the decade, basically doesn't exist. But there's a lot of
But
value
it's coming
on
back
there.
now, yeah. Like,
Yeah, it is.
a lot of people, like, love Gears, like, in a couch co-op sense, and they've doubled down on that. I mean, I
Yeah.
played the first 2 Gears, couch co-op. Those were before the decade, I believe. But yeah, it's getting back to that. So yeah, for a long time there wasn't that many engaging couch co-op games outside of the scene. So yeah,
Absolutely, and even still, there's, we've had Overcooked 2 in the last year or two. There's that I can't remember the name of it, the decorating / DIY type game.
Tools Up.
Yeah.
Tools Up,
Came out the
yes.
other day.
It came out not long ago. We're starting to lean a little bit more into that.
So I think it's important to note that like the industry didn't give a shit about couch co-op until people were starting to give a shit about couch co-op, and that's what's pushing things. Which is actually kind of nice. Is that the reason why we're getting more couch co-op is because people have shown that they care, and the market forces actually at work. Cool. Well, in the interest of time, I'm going to push us further to what you probably should.
I've poured my drink, so
I mean,
so announce your next topic.
oh, the next topic is strategy RPGs, which is
Can
an
me and
Aadil category.
Talk at the same time.
So yeah, so
Just
if
like a
I had
strategy
realized,
RPG.
like, if
So
I
much
realized that
information.
I was actually gonna have these categories guide our entire conversation, I would have put it lower down in the interest. I give a shit about these. I know you guys don't
go for it.
necessarily,
strategy
but
into the bridge.
yeah. So I have 3 things I wanted to mention on strategy RPGs, but I also realized I didn't play Mutant Year Zero, so maybe Ben will talk towards. But basically, I thought Massive Chalice was the number one interesting move in strategy RPGs because you could not, for the life of you, hold on to your team, because the whole point was you're surviving 300 years and people die, and so you have to retire your team. If this is the best alchemist ever, the best thing you can do is have him train alchemists.
Yeah.
Or if this is just a really good warrior who happens to be alchemist, maybe they need to be the head of a province. Like, because it was a strategy RPG where you were constantly putting people in roles of training or breeding / ruling, and other things. There's a eugenic angle that I don't particularly like, but like I thought it was a really good way of spicing up the SRPG thing. So like
definitely.
XCOM Enemy Unknown, the way you beat that's one of the best SRPGs around.
Yep.
It's in the modern generation, but why I don't like it is because what you want to do is perfect your team, make sure no one dies. If they die, you contemplate reloading a save.
Yes.
You save scum on a game like that because you value your team. And in Massive Chalice, there's no way you can possibly do that because at some point you have to retire everyone.
That's interesting.
And so I thought it was innovatively very interesting. It also played SRPG loops really well. It turns out, having played it twice through, again, for me, huge thing. It turns out hunters are OP. And on the second time around, I just bred hunters and not anything otherwise. And you can beat that game real easy. That's some pro strats. But like, what I liked about it was, even then, like, I needed to find replacements for my hunters, and if I was breeding them the wrong way, I wouldn't get hunters, I would get some hybrid class. So I actually had to strategize around what I realized was the optimal path forward, and it didn't mean I could just keep my team. My team was always going to die. Some people would leave earlier than others, and I had to adapt. So even if I understood that there was a broken dynamic, I still had to plan around. And I found that really refreshing and exactly what I thought SRPGs needed, which was something to force you to try different combinations of people because that's what's available.
Yeah, you always gush about this game. Is this the Double Fine?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It originally came out on the Xbox back when I had an Xbox.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
When I gave up the Xbox, it was on
think
PC.
it was on
so the
Games
second
with
time I played
Gold,
it
yeah.
was yeah.
Best
It's
Double
actually
Fine game of the decade. I think The Cave. Nah.
Oh,
The
fucking good
I love
game.
The Cave.
Yeah.
And after that, Headlander. I do like
So
Reckon.
my honorable mention was Into the Breach because it managed to make SRPGs a puzzle.
Mm.
And I
So
liked
the
it.
two ends of the spectrum. One was how to make sure you have to deal with the mechanics all the time because you can't just hold on to optimal team, massive chalice. And the other one is like, what if every map was just a puzzle? And you had to solve it with different pieces, and you had access to different pieces, so you never had an optimal. There was no sense of an optimal team because you're playing different puzzles.
Yeah, I
So
like that game.
the same sort of problem of SRPGs attacked from different angles are Into the Breach and Massive.
And
Was
before you
also
move
one of
on
my
to your
number one
next
games
category,
last year. Sorry.
Is that all for strategy?
I mean, unless
RPG?
anyone else gives a shit about SRPGs, then we're done with
Then-
SRPGs. I suspected that
please.
was the case.
I can see. Okay.
Massive chalice, absolutely. XCOM almost featured on my list, but I can see the criticism that Aadil gave about it. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work that needs to be done in the SRPG scene to bring it up to a slightly modern standard, I think.
So I'm going to say that before we get to online shooters, which you guys can think about, let's talk about Lucy's beer and then my beer.
Because I've been
Ben
dying
can
to
continue
drink
having
it.
his beer, and then we will talk about online shooters and then solo shooters.
Okay. Oh, I found the PS5. You remember the Whiplash beer? That was the Xbox. This is the PS5, even though it's clearly a Rubik's Cube. But this is from Pig's Ears Beer Limited and Whiplash. So they did a beer and art series. I didn't know about this. There's at least 15 in the series because this is can 15. But this is a collab with Whiplash, and it's a double dry hop dipper. It's 8%. And you know what? I'm going to read this. Sophie is an analog collage artist and key artwork designer for Whiplash. They do great art on their cans.
They do, yes.
From source material to the producing and creating, everything is an analog, and all of her artworks cut and finalized by hand. Impressive. Her artwork is caught somewhere between the real and surreal with nod to the past and the future. This piece is entitled "Find a Way," depicting the puzzle of finding the. Interesting. You can find it on Twitter at Sophie_Devere. Tasting notes: piney, zesty, tropical, passion fruit, and pineapple. Aroma and flavor with. What does W/A mean? Oh, with a silky, fluffy.
Yeah, I was just like, I think it's Will.
And lightly sweet. I don't speak text. With a silky, fluffy, and lightly sweet body. Brewed with Idaho 7, Brew 1, Azaka, and Faye. Yeah, I don't speak hip hop. You're in safe.
That's fair.
Fair enough.
Not many of us do.
In the anyway, yeah, Whiplash.
Do you want to talk about what it tastes, or do you want me to talk about what mine's described as?
She's banged it back. She's in there.
Yeah, it's Whiplash. I've been waiting to drink this for like 5 minutes.
45 minutes.
Hearing about SRPGs, just which are great, but not as great as this. Yeah, it's definitely piney. Definitely very tropical fruit. This is actually like flavor text matched it, unlike the political statement we got on Cloudwater Beer podcast.
Oh, but, God, yeah, that was
that was a trip. But this, it's as I was saying on our previous podcast. Again to callbacks. Apologies, listeners. Whiplash have this where it's very like fruity and full, but not in a heavy way. You're still getting you're getting a comforting hug from a beer, but it's not too heavy and dense. It's just that right spot in between. And yeah, it's so fruit forward. It's not too hoppy, but it's majorly fruit forward. It's a nice bit of malt in there, nice bitterness. It's just so well balanced, and you cannot tell it's 8%. I love Whiplash beers; they're so good.
They are very
Excellent.
Very good.
So for me, I've got the Good Chemistry Becoming North. Think can.
Ooh.
It is the first ever brewers were in fact women. They are known as brewsters. The pairings are Tallinn, Riga, and Vilnius. 3 Baltic states. Oh right, it's a Baltic porter. That's why that's happening. I was like, wait, I've literally been to all 3 of those capital cities, and they are Baltic states. What's going on? Oh, of course, the Becoming North is a Baltic porter, and they were outsmarting me. Don't worry about the stats on the OGFG and IBU, because who cares? I say that because they have better flavor text. Taking cues from the brewers of the Baltics, we selected a lager yeast to ferment this dark beer. Keeping the fermentation cold makes the beer extra sweet and brings out the chocolatey malt flavors. It is 19% hoppy, 80% malty, 35% bitter, 55% sweet. Fresh, modern, and thoughtful brewers from our brewery in Bristol, we aim to create good chemistry in its broadest sense. Through the beers we make, and the relationships we form, and the community. That is added flavor text that hasn't been on previous thing. But yeah, it is, I think,
I thought
only
you were
at
going to say
6%.
9% alcohol.
Yeah, it's only 6% alcohol per volume. It is a Baltic porter. It is
when
dark
you
as
started
fuck.
listing off those percentages,
Yeah.
I was like, when
It's
shall
very
we call the ambulance?
It's got it's got long legs, mild heads. While I sip this, do you want to tell me what yours tastes like, Luke?
Yeah, I already did, but I can
Oh, did I?
I can
I've
champion
lost
it
that.
again. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. I've read a lot, look.
I know. Yeah,
Alright, I'm just
done.
gonna drink this.
being host is hard. I tried it once. and I
Basically,
failed.
I just needed some filling
completely.
time while I read a bit.
Oh no, I just wanted to call you out.
Yeah, that's fine.
What was your next online shooters? I'm gonna say what.
I'll just say something about this
topic.
beer. It is malty.
Go ahead.
Again, it's clearly a supporter. It's a little sweet. I'm actually disappointed in its lack of viscosity. Again, it's only 6%. I mean, I think both these past beers it's hard to get the gathering together of the tastes involved, both malty and hoppy and sweetness wise, without some extra ABV. So there's a notion of like chocolate and cherries. That's interesting. Definitely has some malt back ends, less OT, but ultimately I think there's just not quite enough going on. I probably have had too many beers tonight to really notice the lager yeast versus the non-lager yeast that they're highlighting. But
Shame on you.
Yeah, I mean, I will be honest. That's the problem. It's thick. There's some coffee. There's a touch of vanilla, but again, the sweetness is kind of arbitrary tasting. It sort of it feels like added sweetness versus sweetness is like thickening in the way that like a higher ABV will just naturally do, just because of viscosity that changes. Which you can't get around. Like, you just can't get around when you're having a porter or a stout that is under 8%. If you're at 6.5%, it's going to be thin, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
It's really tasty. I like that it's a light coffee, a little sweet. Again, I get a bit of cherry, a bit of other malts going on. It's super interesting. I can't say something spectacular about the lager versus ale approach, but it's interesting. Again, I think I'm just super biased towards stouts and porters being heavy.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Anyway,
It's just-
so that's
can't
yeah,
help.
go on. Yeah.
I'm just saying you can't help. I'm the same way.
So the next category I wanted to bring up was online shooters, and I had Battlefield 1 as my top, mostly because
that the
if
one
I look at online shooters, sorry,
Is that the one that came out like 2-3 years ago?
2016.
Years ago.
Oh yeah, I just don't know the naming.
Yeah. So basically, why it's my number one is because why I like online shooters is I get to play them with my friends. And between Ben and Nico, I played a bunch of Battlefield 1. I played it actually with people I know online to various degrees of shambledness, if you recall. There was definitely a half bottle of whiskey accidentally night of Battlefield 1. And it's like, why am I playing so bad? Oh, I've accidentally drank a half bottle of whiskey. I didn't notice. Obviously, I'm the worst person on this side, etc. But like, I wanted to highlight that because why I like online co-op is because of playing with other people.
Yeah.
And it kind of doesn't matter what the game was. It matters that that's the game I play.
Yeah.
My
Absolutely.
runners up were Rainbow Six Siege, which I played a bunch with former Out of Lives members like Kevin and Ron. I played a bunch when I had an Xbox of Rainbow Six Siege, and I fucking loved. Again, I think it might have been tighter than Battlefield 1, but I played less of it with people I cared about, so it was like a secondary seat. And then same thing with Titanfall 1 and 2. I really liked playing that with others, but just ultimately didn't play much of it.
Yeah, Titanfall 1, not
Fuck,
2. I
Lucy's
did
a
play-
machine on that goddamn game. I played twice with her, and she was just dominating everyone the entire time. And her response was, "I don't play games with other people. I just play the single player, and I'm very good at it." I was like, "Yep, nope, you're right."
I mostly just played, well, the 2 of the decade online shooters that I played. Titanfall 1, I didn't play Titanfall 2. I didn't like the...
Yep.
I much prefer the simplicity of Titanfall 1, the limited loadouts, and it's just being about pure skill. And everybody's on an equal pegging with, like...
with everyone who played a game. She's just real good at that game.
Yeah, I was and still am. I think I put like 300 hours in that game. But yeah, that and as my number one, it would be Call of Duty Black Ops. I still play that game on backwards compatibility. I was so heartbroken the last time I fired it up, which is probably about 2 weeks ago, when I couldn't find a match. So I might have to.
Really? Okay.
I think people were playing. I don't know if it was something the servers thing, but I will find a way of playing that game, even if I have to play with people from I don't know across the world in a you know. But people are still playing that game. Pretty sure.
I mean, and that's like one of the reasons. Like Battlefield 1 is my ninth game, but it is because of the experience of playing with friends. Yeah. And I played a lot of Black Ops with Rob, who I lived with at the time. It was the first Call of Duty that went sort of multiplayer, which I didn't realise was this decade. I kind of just thought
it was before
that, and I don't know why. I don't know why that
I
in
did
my
the same
mind
thing.
It was previous to this decade. And Battlefield 1, I suppose, came to my mind more because it was more recent. And I have those more recent memories of playing with Aadil and with Nico and with Rob as well, with other people. So it kind of
that trade map.
Yeah,
it's awful. It's poorly designed, but we played it anyways. Like that's what I liked about that game.
Is that the one with the cool campaign that I actually played?
I really like that.
The one with the
different vignettes,
tank and the Sahara woman.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah, that's good.
It was actually well crafted, but also I didn't finish the campaign because why I liked that game was not the campaign.
Yeah,
but that game is super pretty.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
Battlefield has always looked better than Call of Duty.
Why I wanted to mention it was somehow, despite all these fond memories, when the new Battlefield came out, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, Battlefield
Like, I just didn't
5
care. Like, I
didn't
just
seem to
didn't
make a
care. And I knew it was because it wasn't clear that the people I played Battlefield 1 with, like, so because I got PS Plus at the right time or something, I just remember there was a disconnect from me from renewing some sort of whatever, access to new maps that Ben didn't. And that was enough for me to be like, I don't give a shit about new maps.
This is why you don't split the audience, give
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah,
But like,
absolutely.
it was that simple. And then it translated to, okay, the next game's coming out. What does it mean for any edition? We'll figure it out. And we're both really busy. We won't play whenever launches. We're not going to play it together. So maybe we'll play it like a couple months after launch, and then it never happened. And like, I miss playing co-op shooting.
Yeah.
Like not couch, but like online co-op shooting with my friends.
Absolutely.
But also, like, no game came out that was like, this is the way you'd want to do that type of thing. So we would all, like, anyone I knew who wanted to do that co-op online shooting would be like, we're playing that game. And so it just didn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Even things like, you know, The Division 2, The Division, games like that didn't quite capture the same feeling as those other games. Which is, again, why Battlefield 1 features on my list, and you know, and online shooters comes to your mind when you're thinking of these things. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's online shooters.
I know the answer to the next one.
Solo shooters.
Yeah.
I have Doom 2016, clearly the best solo shooter. Like, I knew all, but I actually went back and thought about it, and I'm gonna put Far Cry 3.
I deleted Far Cry 3 from my list. It was almost number 10.
That's fair.
That's such a good game.
Exactly. So I was just thinking, what does it mean to play a solo shooting experience? Oh, actually, Far Cry 3 had it like had the open world, but didn't quite get fucking faffed about it.
Yep.
It like had enough interesting things, but still made you give a shit about the main thing. Far Cry 3, I put in there.
That was the first time I realised that Mission 6. I couldn't play Far Cry 3.
Yeah, that's fair. And then I didn't know whether this was cheeky, but I put Alien Isolate in there as well. But even though it's not quite just, I feel like it's flouting the solo shooter notion. But I wanted to acknowledge that it's in the solo shooter like paradigm, but it's doing something completely different.
Yeah. Plus, best horror game that isn't too until.
Yeah. So that's why I'm like, I don't know if this is the best place, but like. Solo shooter wise, I think all three of us agree it's Doom 2016. What a fantastic fucking game.
Absolutely.
You can't beat it. You want just more of what you want from its sequels is what it does again. Yeah, and then again, if I had to think about it, I was going to be like, Far Cry 3 came out in 2012, 2013, and it did something different for the shooter solo genre in a way that didn't.
I don't know. So I think Far Cry 3 built on Far Cry 2 a lot.
Oh yeah, I just think
Far Cry 2 obviously previous decade Far Cry 2, and I actually prefer Far Cry 2 to Far Cry 3.
Fair.
You know, you've got weapon degradation, things that we malign these days that actually back then were kind of not really thought about.
They were new. They were trying new mechanics, right?
They were trying new things. You had the whole malaria issue with Far Cry 2. You had to find medicine. Suddenly, it became a bit more of a survival game.
Yeah.
Which again, we weren't really, au fait with around then. We didn't really have those kinds of games. Far Cry 2 did a lot, whilst being janky enough for people to be like, it's just kind of Far Cry 2. And the idea that it split the map, so actually you had to load between two different areas. You know, those kinds of things kind of put people off. But it was still much ahead of its time. Far Cry 3, yes, is this decade, builds very, very well on Far Cry 2 and takes the base of that game and just streamlines it slightly enough that it opens it up to a few more people. The story is very throwaway. Apart from Vaz, who is one of the best antagonists of this decade.
So this is why I wanted to say Far Cry 3, which was because it was slightly open world, but pretty like honed in. This is the track you want to do, balance wise. I recognize that Far Cry 2 happened in 2008 or whatever, and it was like it's clearly building on those things. But one of the things that later, and this is probably just bad like extrapolation, is like every other Far Cry since has had a shitty villain.
Yeah,
and like they managed to perfect the notion. Well, hone in on the notion of we want the open world, but we want the track.
Yep.
And we're gonna have an actual narrative where the fucking villain matters, not because they're just on the path of the story, but because the villain matters. And for me, Far Cry 3 stands out over and above Far Cry 2 because it was this confluence of things. So I thought it was worth highlighting. But like I will not dispute that the super strengths of Far Cry building on Far Cry 2.
Yeah.
In a way that Far Cry 2 isn't building on Far Cry 1. Like, Far Cry 1 is a rails shooter. Far Cry 2 is the move where they're like, how do we make an interesting narrative with a more open world? Do we have any other just generic... So I mentioned Alien Isolation, but just generic first-person solo experiences? We're all happy.
I mean, you like Super Hot, but... that's it.
Oh, don't worry, that's coming up.
Oh. Innovation.
It's me. Yeah, of course it's me.
Okay.
Again, these categories aren't in any specific order. They're just the order Aadil wrote down. I thought it was worth actually specifically putting small games, whether they're puzzle, short, mobile, whatever.
It's too broad, mate.
I know, but like that's just the way the crumble cookies.
The crumble cookies.
So my two were Hexal's Infinite as a puzzle game. I just played a fuck ton of it. Like if you look at my hours on Steam, it's one of my top games. And then Super Hexagon came out in 2012. Again, love it. Love the way it pushes you on what it means to spend like focus on a thing and notice focusing. Like honestly, play a fast version of Super Hexagon, then play an earlier level, and you have a total different idea of what time passing means. And that's just a brilliant thing. Like, turns out, focusing on a thing means that you interpret it differently. And if, for no other reason, you should play that game.
Yeah.
Because you will do better at the early games when you've tried the earlier levels, when you've tried the harder ones, because everything literally feels slower. And the reason is because you're keying in a different way. And it's the number one example I have of a game affecting the way you interpret a world. It's just that simple, and it's also super interesting. And also, I love the game.
Yeah, I mean, what you always go back to is Super. And so I'll shove this in here. I'll say Thomas Was Alone.
Yeah, I would definitely put that in this category.
Which is my most replayed. You you replay Super Hexagon the most. The game.
Well, I mean, once you beat a level, you don't need to feel like you beat it again.
Yeah. But the one you always come back to, the one game I actually complete over and over again is Thomas Was Alone. So I'll shove that in. And just a shout out to, Shovel Knight, which is still coming out. Like, that was a small game, and they're still doing their thing. They're still cranking out those games. Hopefully they'll move on to something different. I just wanted to shout them out. And SteamWorld Guys, which you got a shout out in a previous podcast, which is good. So they're small game developers, and they deserve their props.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a strange one. Like, I don't have any on my games of the decade. I don't have any small games, but there's so many impactful small games. We talked about Florence earlier on the previous podcast, and it's a game we've talked about a lot. Developed by a very small team, something like Monument Valley. Very, very competent puzzle game. Developed by a small team. And that fits this category of small games that sort of Aadil has coined almost.
Yeah. But overall,
small
as
teams,
you say, it's
small experience. Yeah, and even then, you talked about, as an honourable mention, photographs in our last episode, and that is a small game. You get sort of almost vignettes, kind of novellas of different stories, different small experiences that then moves on to something else. There's another small experience, and there are absolutely tons of these games out there which can give you a small experience, and whether that is a small gameplay experience, whether that's a small narrative experience, there's exactly, there's so many things. So Aadil, in your absence, Florence, having talked about it, it fits this genre, and
it is literally my third in line for this category, but I mentioned earlier, so I wouldn't say it.
I think as a small experience, it came something like third or fourth in my favourite games last year,
and third or fourth and fifth in my favourite games this year. And honestly, it was probably because I realised it was a game that we already did the year before, so it was like fifth.
Yeah, sure.
That's a weird thing about indie games. I'm the game queen, but it's like every year for like 20 years or whatever. It's like my top game's been a AAA game. It's like, but like this year has probably been most last several years, like in terms of 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way through to 10. But yeah, it's a weird one. But so, small games.
So small games.
Small. Yeah.
I mean, this is what I figured was going to be the biggest broad category. But in the interest,
I said my piece.
Yeah. In the interest of time, I think one of the biggest things that's happened in video games in the past 10 years has actually been innovation, sort of turning your head on things. So I'm going to say I have sort of 3 keys on this, one of which we already talked about, one of which we sort of offhand mentioned, and another we haven't. So I think in regards to narratives, the Stanley Parable is actually different from what we described because the narrative was dynamically generated.
Sure, yeah.
So, like, innovatively, it was, the whole point was the narrative, but also, if you flouted the narrative, the narrator changed with you in a way that no other game had done before, and I wanted to highlight that, because, yes, I agree, narratively, like we talked about it before, it's super great, but, like, it did a thing that no one else had done. And like Bastion sort of aped that in a very straightforward way, but like the storyline of a playthrough of the Stanley Parable is totally different if you make different choices. That's super interesting. Generally, Superhot/Superhot VR I thought were my top things because one, I think Superhot VR is one of the best VR games ever, but it's building on the same thing that Superhot did, which was this idea of if I don't move, time's going to go super slow, so I can strategically, like, it's like, how to make sense of VATS in the Fallout universe? Like, you have to notice things, right? And like, one of the best things was they recognized the limitations of the hardware, and it was like super well planned. You're in a spot, you're pivoting, you're just making this decision, and that decision goes as quickly or as slowly as you wanted. And with the original game, it was like you can kind of just abuse the FOV, the field of view, and then as soon as they moved to VR, it was like, oh, that FOV abuse can't happen because the way people work is they look, and the movement of your head will move time faster, and that made the game so much harder, but so much more fulfilling. You had to pay attention to your movements in a different way from letting go of the mouse and looking at the screen. Like, it was a natural evolution of the gameplay that they had done with the original game, which I have never seen in like an incremental thing. And I get that this is like across mediums of expression, for lack of a better term, and just like they did the best. And then my runner-up was Antichamber. I don't think either of you have played Ben yet.
I've
No,
played it.
no, I
I've
haven't
played
played
a
it.
little bit. I haven't.
And it's basically
Maybe
the
one of-
inverse of that, which is, what if I only had control of just your movement, but the map, like, people are paying attention to where you are in a map and shifting the world around you in certain ways, so that you had to puzzle solve with the idea that the world was not static but dynamic. And I think Super Hot and Antichamber are like two sides of the same coin. One is you have this very strict dynamic map, but there's a lot going on, but we're letting you take control of that dynamicism. And then Antichamber is, I don't care how long it takes you to take 2 steps forward, but when you step forward, you might not be in the same place otherwise, because I'm going to change the static environment based on your minimal moves. But they're ultimately the same type of innovation, just two sides of the same coin. And they're basically saying, hey, this first-person genre is stale in the 2010s. How do you make this interesting?
Yeah, that's
And
a
like,
very good
beating Antichamber
dichotomy there.
is an effort. Like, it's a cheap game. I think everyone should buy it and try it out, because you get a notion of like, all right, how much do you take for granted with respect to maps?
Yeah.
Because going forward means blah, but like sometimes you just need to turn around and notice the world has changed behind you, because you've actually gone into a different area. And like, that's the entire point of Antichamber, is pushing you to question the tropes of what it means for you to play these first-person games. And then Super Hot's the other side of the coin, which is, yes, we all recognize those tropes, but like, if you just, if I give you the chance to think tactically around those tropes, how will you interact?
Yeah.
Nothing
I love that
changes,
dichotomy.
just your speed.
Yeah. I like where you finished on that, because that's, I've never actually thought about those two games. But yeah, that makes sense. And I want to,
Absolutely.
in fact, Antichamber reminds me of two other lo-fi games. Expand. That's probably nobody's. Oh, you've played Expand?
Yeah.
Both of you have.
Yeah. Hey, we're tanked up, motherfucker.
It's just a game where I thought the soundtrack just mixed so well with the gameplay. It's like other games have done that, like, I don't know, Sayonara or Wild Hearts this year, but Expand for me, when was that, 2016 or something? It just works so well for me. And I was thinking of another lo-fi game, Dark Echo, because Antichamber is quite sparse. Dark Echo on like Steam and iOS, it's actually really good. Because I was thinking, Resident Evil, good horror games. I was like, when I said that before, I just perked up and I was like, about Dark Echo, so I want to give that a shout out. But the only other one I really had for innovation, Aadil, was Brothers. And
A Tale of Two Brothers?
A Tale of Two Brothers.
Sons.
Sorry. Yeah,
Tale of Two Sons. Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. And Return of the Obra Dinn. Because when we mentioned Papers, Please, I didn't want to mention Return of Obra Dinn, because I wanted to put those two in innovation.
So, I mean, my biggest fault of the past year is last year at this time, you guys were like, this is a great game, and I didn't play it.
So good. Well, you've got all the time in the world.
Oh yeah, it's probably gonna be a 2020 game for me.
Well, so.
But like you both literally said to me, "This is your jam, Aadil. Like, you will like this game, you will love this game. We're recommending it," and I still didn't do it. That's why it's not on my super list. But like,
I wanted to bring it up. Ben, did you have? What was your 10-1? I really want to know, because you got to wake up now.
Right.
Yeah, just
run these down.
Yeah.
So number 10 was news games. So things like Firewatch, Stanley Parable, Gotland. Number 9 was Battlefield 1.
Same reason.
It is the only first-person shooter on my list, and again, very much because I enjoy playing with my friends. Black Ops could have very easily have been in
Forget
this
Black
space
Ops,
as we talked about.
Could have
I mean,
ripped
yes,
and torn.
yes, I do enjoy first-person shooting. That's true. I've been ripping it to the fucking demons. I do enjoy first-person shooters, but actually, the element of playing with other people and that strategy holds me a little bit more than it does just through a first-person single-player experience. So, then running down through my list, and this is a ranked list, so I am going through games I preferred.
Yeah, because you mentioned them like piped up now and then.
I'm gonna run
So
through.
interesting.
Yeah, just run them through. I gave.
So, number 8, God of War. Number 7, Journey. Number 6, The Walking Dead Season 1. Number 5, Civilization 5. Number 4, Red Dead Redemption 2. Number 3, The Witness. Number 2, The Witcher 3.
Okay,
And
again,
number
pause here. I was super surprised no one mentioned the 3 up to this point.
I knew Ben would. I knew Ben though.
Basically, I think
That's
what the
why.
problem was I haven't
That's why I
played
said
it, so...
best RPG.
There's no genre that game fits into.
RPG.
No, there's not though. It's an adventure game.
What? The Witcher.
Yeah. It's
You're
not an
on.
RPG. You haven't got to worry about your character fucking build, really?
It's an RPG, Ben.
Oh, mate, it's
That's
an
why I haven't played it. If it was an action adventure to it by now. Carry on. And the number one, drum
Number
roll.
1 has been announced. The Last of Us.
No, it's not.
A game I still haven't
The
played.
only game that's made me
would've won.
actually fucking cry.
No, it would have
I
been
know,
the one that
definitely
I said,
Florence.
you know,
Florence is a game
best
that makes you cry.
Best,
Well, okay.
best. No, I was gonna say, you know, with Mafia 3 and Wolf 2, and you know, best mediocre games, best narratives. That's the Last of Us is trash, mate.
Wow.
Fuck you.
I'm
man.
joking.
Wow.
I'm absolutely joking.
I know you love that
I'm all
game.
It's never. It didn't make me cry, but it you know, people say, "Oh, you know, Star Wars changed my life." Jedi or a Wookiee, and it's like, oh yeah, of course it did, mate. Whatever. The Last of Us is probably my stupid thing where I say, oh yeah, it changed. Yeah. Even though it didn't, because I'm not a clicker.
Let's just. Alright. In the
You're not
interest
Bill. You
of
haven't got to worry about it.
timing and not offending more people, can I ask what your favorite beers of the night were, even if it crosses the episode? I'm going to start with Lucy, because she's waving her arms.
It doesn't cross episodes.
Yeah, cool.
It's a Whiplash. That Brewery Keys one. Really good. Not what I thought it would be. As a stout, it looked, when I poured it, it looked like a, you know, wine. When I smelt it smelled like some licoricey nonsense. But actually tasting it, having it had all the good qualities of a stout. And I think that Sriracha Ace actually brought some new things to it. It had like a kind of fruity kind of lightness to it, which was weird because it had pistachio and honey and those very strong and overpowering full flavors, but it's still balanced really well. But yeah, the Whiplash, which was in collaboration with Pig's Ears Beer Limited, part of the Beer and Art series, which I didn't know existed till today, so check those out. Really good. It's Whiplash in a can. You know,
Nice.
you can't get any better.
Yeah.
Ben!
Number 1.
I think for me it's the Frau Gruber, drunk on the previous episode, Hybrid Moments, which is double dry hopped, double India Pale Ale. I've enjoyed all of the beers I've had tonight, but I think the Frau Gruber was just very, very well balanced. It gave a really good flavour throughout, from the fore right to the end. These stouts are nice. They're very alcoholic. and you get that through them as well. And if you want an alcoholic kind of stout, then like the Odyssey, the Devil's Pudding is a good beer. You're getting a lot of different flavours from that. But actually, for a really well balanced beer, Hybrid Moments was really nice.
Good stuff. We can see that you mellowed completely after those two stouts, so they were pretty good.
They were. They were very good.
Yeah.
So for me, I think it's actually the first beer of the night. Was the Whiplash 6 Billion Ways IPA. I think there was just enough going on that even though I was early in the night, the maltiness and hoppiness being like, again, there's 3 malts, 3 hops, etc. Like, it just, there was enough nuance in the taste that by the beginning and the end, I was intrigued and paying attention to it in a way that the others kind of were just playing a role. So, like, the Becoming North is super interesting, but ultimately kind of just being a lower percentage porter. Same thing with the Nocturne. Like, I think the Cloudwater just basically, I think it could have been a dead heat between these two, but the Cloudwater, what's best for us is also what's best for you, kind of suffers from the same political message that they're trying to do, which is that it was a lot of like lower echelon fruits, just like, look, these are the fruits that are going on. Do you care? Yes, no. But nothing super like forward about this is the taste that's going on. I'm going to say this is the thing. Instead, it was going for some sort of weird balance thing, and ultimately it's kind of forgettable because of that. Which I will not read more politically because I don't think we need that. But like, so like I was expecting the Cloudwater to have a little more forceful taste, a little more nuance, and they ultimately kind of failed me on that. While the Whiplash was saying, "Look, I've got some things going on, interpret it," and I did, and I liked it.
Yeah.
And then the two porters ultimately just were like a handful shy of something super interesting.
Yeah, because
it was a 5% and a 6%, and all. I think it's probably mostly me. So if you like lower ABV porters, you'll be happy with either of these things. But like, I like porters and stouts to be kind of sweet because they're high ABV and super viscously forward and just like that thick, like strong taste. And neither of these could do those because they're just lighter porters. And it's probably a fault of me for picking them, but like, if you like light porters, I think both these are tasty. But if you want your porters to be sort of more bog standard, more like alcohol / taste forward, you're going to struggle with them for the same reason I did, which is just that like when they're lighter ABV, you don't get that like in your face taste because you can't.
Yeah,
so that's the beer roundup.
Well, you know, Whiplash, when beer of the year. So,
well, from these last 2 episodes, yes, they seem to have.
Yeah. And Ben, you're the only one representing PlayStation here. Greens and whites around here. So, in the end, Nintendo Switch wins platform because
definitely for the past year, because like I think 8 of my games of the year were Switch games. But what I will say is, Ben, if people gave a shit about your opinion on beers and games of the past decade, how would they contact you?
At Nova_47.
Wow.
Cool. That's it.
On
things.
Twitter,
Instagram, some places.
Yeah,
you can search my name in other places, but other people exist.
How would they?
It's Juicy Loose Night.
Yeah, and you can reach me at the Omniarch on all of the things except Twitch, where I'm the _Omniarch, but never stream, so it doesn't fucking matter. If you wanted to reach us as a group /team, we are tankedupcast@gmail.com. We have an Instagram at TechDipCast on Instagram. Other things don't matter. We are not currently on TikTok, but if you tell us we should be, we will lip sync the #1 favorite tune of 1997, whatever that is. I will make sure the three of us do it. That is a New Year's promise.
Isn't it?
Oh yeah, I am currently just saying I will make sure we lip sync that. And it's
What
probably
year
gonna be
did
me
S Club
lip-syncing
Party
that.
come out?
But I don't care. I accepted that that's the thing I said because I've been drinking all night, and that's the thing
Spice
that happened.
Girls. I will TikTok
19. I
Spice
said
Girls.
1997.
Yeah,
Top
Spice
song.
Girls.
Yeah. Anyway,
I bet if enough time I could.
what I
think of
wanted to say
number
before
one.
we cut off
Remember
was
Top of the Pops people? I could think.
we definitely care about the opinions of our colleagues on the internet and about not only our top games of 2019 but also what constitutes a good game of the past decade. So please contact us so we can talk about it in an episode on the new year.
I listed them all.
Or just look on YouTube and look at the screenshot that you could have taken of Lucy showing that exact map out. But this has been Tanked Up for another decade. I've been Aadil. Ciao.
Bye.
God. Oh,
Bye.
yeah, bye.
See
But-
ya.
Bye.
I know,
So
another
make it
decade.
really
I know,
sad.
it makes
It's
it.
when you
It makes it. It makes it fucking real.
Decade.
No
Yeah,
one cares.
the end of
It's
the
the worst.
Another
worst part is
decade.
we
Nothing
started within
achieved.
this decade, so it's not actually been another decade. So I definitely lied to the viewers. We've been
Just
tanked up
one
for
decade.
this decade.
I mean,
Yeah.
at least you have a PhD and a house.
I
what
don't
do
have
I
a
have?
house. I
No,
definitely don't.
I meant you, Aadil.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I have a,
You
I
have
have a
some
PhD,
college.
he has a house. Yeah, I guess.
And what do I have? None of those.
Sanity. Pure, unadulterated sanity.
No.
www.outoflives.net